You in the peach shirt, right in front. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry, go right there. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Welcome to Regina, Mr. Prime Minister. I would like to bring attention to comments you had made back in November when you had spoke about the gender and social impacts construction workers create in rural areas. Although not a construction worker, I myself am an oil field worker in addition to being a full-time university student and have spent my summers temporarily relocating to various rural areas in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba to work on oil field-related projects. During my time working in the oil field as a young female, I have come across some of the kindest and most respectful male co-workers and have created lasting friendships in the rural towns I had temporarily relocated to. I work very hard and have dedicated a lot of time in the oil field industry during my summer in order to keep up with increasing tuition costs. And I feel that you have painted myself, my co-workers, and friends in a negative light with your comment. My question for you, Mr. Prime Minister, is what exactly did you mean by gender impacts when you bring construction workers into a rural area? If you could, please provide a thorough explanation on your comment in addition to clarifying what exactly those social and gender impacts are. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your question, and thank you for your hard work. Construction workers build this country every single day. The work you do and the work your colleagues do around this country, building our roads, building our bridges, building our homes, building our factories, building our country every day is an essential building block of the country and the future we're building. That's why we're investing historic amounts in infrastructure. That is why we know that investments in the work that construction workers do right across the country is essential for building the better future that we need. Thank you for your question. Next question. I'm going to take a question from the opposite side of the issue. Sorry, ma'am, you asked a question about Saudi Arabian oil. Do you want to ask that? Sorry. No, you can ask that Saudi Arabian question now, because you shouted it out.
I'm sorry, but I'm just like, it's so hard to be patient here with all of these lies. Okay. Yes, that is one question. Why are we buying oil from Saudi Arabia, Mr. Trudeau? Number two question. I just read a report from Ontario where you said Sharia law was compatible with Canadian values. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Sorry. We're going to let her speak, and then we're
Number three question, Mr. Trudeau, is you've sold us out to globalism.
Okay.
You are not working for Canada. You are working for your globalist partners. I wonder how much they're paying you to betray Canada. Okay. What do we do with traitors in Canada, Mr. Trudeau? We used to hang them for treason. And you're doing that very same thing to us now. Okay. We know what you're doing. But you can start with the oil question first.
Okay. It's interesting that you started with concerns about facts and truth in answers and in our approach. And if we're going to have rigorous debates about what the best way is forward for the country, I think we need to do it around the facts. Now, there is a lot of misinformation out there that talks about, among others, Quebec as being reliant on Saudi oil, and that's a problem for Canada and a big issue. That is false. Quebec actually gets its oil from the United States and from Western Canada. The reversal of the Line 9 pipeline actually means over the past 3 years, Quebec has gotten 3 times as much oil from the oil sands as it ever had before. So the games being played around misinformation for political partisan reasons out there, and I certainly don't blame you, man, because these so-called facts are floating around here, and that's one of the good things about having an opportunity to engage and to ask blunt questions about things that you may have seen or heard on the internet. And I'm happy to tell you that that is simply not true. Quebec gets its oil from the United States and from our oil sands. Secondly, you had a question, your third question was on globalism. Oh no, your second question was on Sharia law. I am pleased to be able to tell you that that also is not something that I ever said. So there is, again, misinformation out there that as citizens, we should be skeptical. I know you could be skeptical. You should be skeptical about what any politician says, including me. You should be looking into what the facts are. You should be a responsible consumer of information. It's your responsibility as a citizen to be thoughtful and engaged and listening to a broad range of perspectives and looking at the facts so you can make a determination about how we can move forward best as a country. And in the upcoming election, I hope that people will question what all different politicians say and try and see who might be telling the truth, who might be twisting the truth or misrepresenting facts in a way that is designed to divide, to make fearful, to polarize debate, rather than trying to find solutions that are bringing us together. And that's something you need to be worried about. On the third question around global government, yeah, that's something that we've seen also floating around in certain corners of the internet. I assume it refers to some of the commitments and some of the leadership that Canada has shown internationally around migration issues. As I said earlier, Canada is one of those countries that has done a better job on immigration than just about any other country. And Canadians, for the most part, are extremely positively inclined towards immigration because we know it has been a tremendous benefit economically to our country over the past years and decades and even generations. So the idea that we're somehow giving up sovereignty is yet again another thing designed to create fear and division, and I would encourage all Canadians as citizens to be thoughtful and skeptical about what they are reading on the internet and what they actually hear from politicians whenever they engage in public discourse. Thank you very much. You, ma'am, go ahead. Yes, your question right there.
I don't have a question for you.
Oh, sorry.
Because I don't think that there's anything you can say at this point. I believe that the Wet'suwet'en have title to their land. I believe that they've gone to Delgamuukw to demonstrate their inherent rights and title. I believe that the conflict that you're making it into out west with helicopters flying overhead and paramilitaries showing up with assault rifles is appalling. And so I'm more or less here to tell you that that's shameful. And you can't pretend that this is about rule of law.
Sorry,
oh, I'm fine with being interrupted by, you know, supporters. That's great. But it's not about the rule of law because it's already been found in Delgamuukw. It's already been pretty clear. You say you're about communities and supporting their development and their investments, but how much money does it take for Indigenous communities to take these colonial governments to court every time just to prove what they already know, which is the Canadian government, the provincial governments have no right to be doing what they're doing. Perhaps 2 generations of your sons will be apologizing later for what's happening today. I just want you to consider that, and that I don't believe that you're this sort of sunny ways prime minister when you legislate the posties back to work. When you're out there violating Indigenous people's rights, you can put on a great facade here. I've heard more than enough people say, answer the question, and you're talking in circles. The discerning of the viewers already are aware of this. Solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing that perspective, and it's an extremely important one. Are you going to stick around for my response, or? Okay, thank you. Over the past generations and indeed centuries, Canada has failed in respecting the spirit and intent of the original treaties, of the relationship that we were supposed to have with the original inhabitants of this land. It was supposed to be about partnership. It was supposed to be about shared stewardship. It was supposed to be about how we move forward together. And generation after generation of Canadian leadership did not live up to that. And that's why, over the past 3 years, we have made it a priority to repair that broken relationship, or to begin the work of repairing that relationship in respect, in partnership, and on two levels. First of all, on the level of the Crown Indigenous relationship, which means empowering communities to be in control of their own destiny, their own land, to be able to weigh in, to be able to develop self-governing models. A couple of days ago in Ottawa, I had the opportunity to sit down with the self-governing nations in Canada, and we had an excellent conversation about the challenges they're facing, but also how successful they've been in getting out from under the colonial relic that is the Indian Act. We need to move beyond the Indian Act. We need to make sure that people have opportunities to control their own destiny and build their future. And that is what we are doing. Now, the other side of things is realizing that Indigenous peoples in this country still live in conditions that are far worse than non-Indigenous people, whether it's boil water advisories, whether it's substandard housing, whether it's schools and medical centers that are not able to give them the support they need. There are huge problems in terms of the quality of life and the services offered to Indigenous peoples in their communities. And that's why we are significantly investing in those. We are trying to improve in an immediate way the quality of life in Indigenous communities across the country. But as we all know, there is an awful lot of work to do. And some places are moving faster than others. Some communities have a head start over others because of work that they've done in the past. And the other issue is, no matter how well-meaning the solutions might be from Ottawa in trying to say, well, this is what you need, if they are solutions sourced from the federal government, they cannot be the solution. The solutions need to come from Indigenous communities and Indigenous leaders themselves. And that is why, in some cases, it takes time to work with them to develop that path and those solutions. Now, there are also challenges. One of the challenges we're seeing with the Wet'suwet'en is that there are elected chiefs who have said one thing in support of the pipelines, and there are hereditary chiefs who are in disagreement. And these are things that need to be worked out, and they need to be worked out in respect, in partnership, in consultation, because we're doing something new in Canada. When we say we need to change our relationship with Indigenous peoples to be more respectful and a better partnership, that's not something we've done before. It's not something people around the world have been particularly good at, so we don't even have great models for that. So we are developing it, and there's going to be turbulence along the way. And I was pleased to see a reducing of the tensions yesterday in Wet'suwet'en, but there is still much more work to do as we figure out how to get our resources to new markets, get our resources. Canada will always be a country for all our investments in AI and science and the knowledge economy. We're always going to be a country that relies on natural resources, on people being innovative and thoughtful and hardworking to get our natural resources out to new markets. And that is something that we're going to have to figure out how to do together in new ways. And there are folks who are... Did she leave? Oh. There are folks who are impatient. And I'm impatient too, because we want to make it happen for real. But it is going to take time, and it's part of a process. Thank you very much.